Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Hold on a second. I thought that I had everything already perfect. I was all proud of myself. I'm like, all right, it's go time. We got everything good. And then I didn't have the sound set up correctly, so I can't hear the music. There we go. Turn that down just a 10. All right, so it's a Monday. We've got a big week ahead of us. Typically, this would be a pretty quiet week. This is likely to be pretty light liquidity-wise because the algorithms very much respect the seasonality. But we've got a couple of big events happening, particularly NVIDIA earnings and the speech by Jerome Powell for Jackson Hole on Friday. So, let's come over to the charts real quick and just kind of look at where we've been. So it looks like rates are turning back up again and Treasuries down, but only a little bit overnight. S&P 500 taking a little bit of a jump here. Not quite sure what that's about, but I think there has been some economic numbers and so forth overseas. Oil on the upside as well. Gold and silver kind of struggling. Well, silver's taking a jump. Kappa maybe wanting to come out. It's getting close. It's getting close. And then we come over here to the currencies. Bitcoin really struggling after that huge doozy that we had last Friday. And a little bit of overnight weakness, but nothing too spectacular. And the dollar sitting just above 103, actually bouncing off of 103 briefly. So, interesting that Bitcoin is struggling despite the dollar being a little bit weak this morning. By the way, wheat and corn rollover today. Didn't see that notification. Did that before this stream. Morning, Octavius. Good morning, D. Hey, you're here on time. That's good to see. Anthony Galdi, that's a new name, but welcome to the stream. And what do you have here, D? You're looking at the new Forex expiries. Relatively light expired today. It is likely to be a light week. So let's come over here and head over to Forex Factory. Pull up this week. So we've got a bunch of Federal Reserve speakers tomorrow, and as well as existing home sales, some flash manufacturing PMIs, unemployment claims, and consumer sentiment on Friday as well. But a pretty heavy week Federal Reserve speaker wise, so that is definitely one to keep in mind. Although for today, well, nothing for today, and tomorrow, nothing until well after we are done trading. So, and good morning, buddy love. I'm seeing some new names like bright and early today. That's kind of exciting. Have you guys as kids started school yet? Because my kids, they started school like a week earlier than they usually do, and I think it's kind of throwing everybody off. Because this is usually the week where like everybody goes on vacation like the week before, you know, or the 2 weeks before. Kind of has me a little screwed up. Well, with that said, I think that we are unlikely to see anything too crazy over here in the Treasuries. There is a little bit of downside action, and like I said, the rates are being pressured. So that gives us time to kind of think and chill, talk about things a little bit. Ball is in the airish. The other big event that we got this week that we got to talk about is the debate. Oh, the debate. Can you believe that this Wednesday there's going to be a GOP presidential debate? Well, it's Wednesday, but I'm not quite sure how this is going to play out because Donald Trump is not going to be at the debate. I think his intention here is to just make the debate seem like it's not a real thing and pretend like he is running a re-election campaign instead of, or rather he's trying to run an incumbent campaign is I think what Donald Trump is trying to do. He's trying to run it like an incumbent. If you are an incumbent, then you don't really have a debate, or if you do have a debate, they don't take it seriously. Right, you just don't take the challengers very seriously because they don't stand a chance, right? There's a big rates auction this week. Well, let's see here. I didn't see anything listed on there, but let's go to Treasury Direct. I hate how Treasury Direct makes the page a little bit harder to get to. Put this under finance. Okay, let's see here. So today is the 21st. So we do have some 17, 4, and 8-week bills on the 22nd. And then on the 24th, that would be Wednesday, 13 and 26 week. And then we get two. Oh, now that's interesting. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Those are the auction dates. I was misreading those. So auction 13 and 26 week is today, 23rd and 24th. But when we come down into here, the 2-year, 5-year, 7-year, and then 20. Oh, okay. So they probably were talking about the 20-year, which is on Wednesday. There's a 20-year, and then there's a 29-year, 6 months. So tips, but those are tips. That's on the 24th. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about Canadian news. Whatever it is, it's not even showing up on any of my calendars. There was some German numbers overnight, so I think that a lot of the action that you see in the overnight session is because of some of these European and Chinese news. Anyways, Wednesday, debate. So, or the question is going to be, so the thing that gets weird is that Donald Trump's not just skipping the debate. He has scheduled a competing event where he will be interviewed by Tucker Carlson. And my understanding is that it's going to be live on Twitter. So there's going to be this whole thing about, did Donald Trump get more viewership than the debate? So on one hand, I think that there's a really, really good chance that he will get better viewership than their debate. People tend not to turn into debates, even the really politically active people. Not all of them turn into the debates in the early debates. Tucker Carlson has been getting pretty good viewership. I don't know about the viewership that he will get live, but, over the course of it, I'm sure more people will see the Donald Trump interview than the debate thing. But on the other hand, there are some scenarios where that's not necessarily what matters. For instance, if the debate generates some degree of controversy or conversation, the candidates really go after each other, they make really good arguments against Donald Trump or something like that, that could play in as well. I don't know. I really don't like... So the issue is that they kind of changed some of the way that the debate was run and some of the rules and so forth. So he's kind of... what is the word? He is boycotting the debate for a cause, basically, right? But so I don't necessarily like the changes that they made to the debate either, but I really don't like this idea that like we're just going to ignore the debates altogether. I think that that's like a really, really important part of the process, and I'm really concerned about what kind of a circus we're turning our GOP nomination into if we don't follow some of those traditions, I'm furthermore, I'm just a little bit perplexed as to maybe I'm not. So the whole thing is that it's looking right now like Donald Trump's going to get the nomination, right? And so you sit back and you're like, well, how is that possible? Well, I think that when you look at the polling right now, remember that the polling pre-Labor Day is kind of dumb anyways. Okay, like the polling this early on is kind of dumb. And it mostly only shows you name recognition. Right? So who has the name recognition right now? Obviously Donald Trump. Most people outside of Florida don't know who Ron DeSantis is. So the whole thing here is Ron DeSantis needs to get his name out there, and one of his best chances, it would be arguing against Donald Trump at the debate. And Donald Trump's not going to show up to the debate. So he's basically he's depriving DeSantis and the other campaigns of the air that they would need to be able to even compete with Trump. Rama, yeah. Well, so here's what I'm thinking, because I am very skeptical of Ramaswamy, because what I see is another Andrew Yang. I can't help but see the comparisons to Andrew Yang, right? It's a young tech guy that, because of his success in the tech sphere, seems to think that he's like God's gift to the world, or has all of these smart solutions for us now, when the reality is that the majority of his success probably comes solely from the field that he was in and the amount of money that has gone into that field in the past decade. And I would think, or my prediction is, that when he is on the debate stage and people are actually punching back, that he will just collapse. I think that Ramaswamy has been kind of like edging up in the polls. So like one of the things you got to keep in mind is that it's not necessarily so much about policy. You know what I mean? A lot of it is kind of like when voters are listening to what the politician says, is this politician on my side? That's kind of what people are thinking about, right? And so Ron DeSantis, I think, has kind of caught himself in this really bizarre spot where his policy is extremely conservative. Like, it is more aggressive than Donald Trump, like significantly so. And Donald Trump has been attacking Ron DeSantis from the left. Okay? Like, Donald Trump is not running a right-wing campaign this time at all. But Ron DeSantis is now viewed as like the establishment candidate, even though he's more conservative than Donald Trump. He's being viewed as or at least I think Donald Trump has successfully taken the race to Donald Trump is still the outsider destroying the political establishment, and Ron DeSantis has come to embody the political establishment, right? So anyways, Ramaswamy, he has kind of like hitched his wagon to Trump in ways that Ron DeSantis hasn't, right? Like, you know, oh, I would pardon him, things like that. Almost as if he's running more to be vice president than he is. Because that's the thing that's really weird about all of this, right? Is that the vice president position is open, right? So I kind of feel like Ramaswamy is running to be vice president, and the concern I have for him is that when you get on the debate stage and people punch back, that Ramaswamy is going to get just bloodied, because I don't think that his policy proposals are as serious as he thinks that they are. A lot of the things that he's proposed are kind of dumb and are kind of politically untenable. Why does Donnie even care to run again? I think this is just his ego wanting to run. Well, okay, so yes, you probably could just chalk it up to his ego, but I don't feel like that answer really helps people understand what's going on, right? So what is really going on here is that Donald Trump won in 2016. Donald Trump won in 2016, and then after he won, instead of the political establishment saying, oh, okay, we screwed up and people are upset with us and we need to make some adjustments, instead they doubled down. And the way that they doubled down was they concocted this wild conspiracy theory that Donald Trump was in collusion with the Russians, and ran this whole Russian collusion thing for the whole of his presidency. And they basically didn't allow him to govern. Of course, Donald Trump did have his successes, but the reality is he was only able to get through like tax reform, and most of the things that he could have done as president that he should have been able to do as president, he was blocked from, even by fellow Republicans. Remember, for instance, the Republicans coming one vote short because of John McCain from rescinding Obamacare, for instance, and then being able to maybe take a shot at their own healthcare plan or something like that, right? This is why he feels that he had his term stolen from him by Russian collusion. And so that's why he wants to run again. That's really what it comes down to, which is the same, is just a really long way of saying that it's kind of about his own ego, but there's some context around that that's important. And I think that that's important because a lot of voters also kind of feel like, well, Donald Trump is the only person that can solve these problems, and you didn't let him do his job, so we have to put him back in there so that he can come in and, eviscerate the establishments. Right? That's what's going on. Yeah, if Republicans lose again with Trump in 2024, who's to blame? Well, but then this is the ironic thing on this one, Anthony, is you would think that we would turn around and the people on the more establishment side, I don't even necessarily want to say that it's the establishment side, because I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think that there are people that are both establishment and conservative, and a whole bunch of other reasons that are kind of like, I don't think that Trump is a good pick this time around. Okay, but if Donald Trump does lose, they're not going to say, oh, it was dumb to elect Donald Trump, we need to get away from Donald Trump. They're certainly not going to say that it had something to do with our policy platform or something like that. They're going to say that it's because of voter fraud, that it's because of changes to voting laws that make it so that Republicans can't win anymore. That because they were allowed to get away with stealing the election in 2016, that Republicans will never win another election in our lifetime, right? That's what they're going to say if Donald Trump loses. Is the USA better now than with Trump? Well, certainly not. But I don't know. Like here's the thing about this. Joe Biden's this one is so weird because Joe Biden's economic policy has been so terrible. And I think that Americans just see it because they administration has been trying so hard to push like this Bidenomics and this has been good and things are going good. Well, I mean the economy has been going good for the last year, but it's like on borrowed money basically, and everybody seems to know it. Everybody, it's so surprising to me that with all of the trickery and the misinformation that I've seen out there on the Democrat side about inflation and what's going on, the majority of Americans just see right through it and see that Joe Biden's policy exacerbated inflation. Okay, but here's the thing. Even if Joe Biden wasn't president, I think that we would still be facing some pretty big struggles right now. Like I don't think that inflation would have been as bad, but it doesn't solve some of these other problems. For instance, the dollar being really strong and it just eviscerating our manufacturing industry right now. How do you solve that one? The Ukraine war. Well, would the Ukraine war have happened with Trump in office? I kind of suspect not, but let's just assume that it did happen. Yeah, that would be having political impacts. It wouldn't be such a pleasant thing, So there would be a lot of things that if Donald Trump or somebody other than Joe Biden was president right now would probably be a little bit better. But I think that there would still be a lot of economic struggles. This whole thing that like the people on my side of not my side, my corner of the economic of the U.S. economy. That's what I want to say. The people that are in my corner of the U.S. economy, i.e. technology, computers, that sort of stuff, we're doing pretty well. Like it's so well over here in tech that even with like mass layoffs, people in tech are still doing fairly well, right? And then you've got like everybody else. All of the working class Americans are just getting absolutely screwed by this inflation in particular, right? They're not doing so well. And I don't think that anything that Donald Trump would have done differently from Joe Biden would be helping that right now. I mean, that's kind of the thing is that Donald Trump was put in office. He didn't get the job done, in my opinion. I think that he did a couple of things that were really great, but the things that he did that were really great were things that Republicans had been working on for decades, and they just were finally able to do it. I don't think it had anything to do with him, And one of the issues that I have in particular with if Donald Trump was president was that, Joe Biden, he put a lot of stimulus into the economy, right? I think that Donald Trump would have done it too. Because the way that he behaved after COVID was like, oh, yes, we have an opportunity to spend money and stimulate the economy. I'm 100% going to take advantage of that. He was so transparently like, yes, this is this helps you get reelected straight up as spending the money. And he just knows it so reflexively. He doesn't think at all about the deficit. He doesn't care at all about those things. Was he strong with geopolitics? I don't know. So let's talk geopolitics, because that's a big issue going on right now. Well, he did a lot of things to piss people off, right? Because the entire foreign policy establishment, particularly like here in the United States, because you got to understand, there's only so many people that go into this as like a career, okay? And it's basically turned into like you don't go into that as a career unless you agree with the current way that foreign policy is going. So there isn't really anybody out there to push against the consensus in foreign policy. Okay. And Donald Trump came in and he tried to stir that up by saying that the NATO countries, they need to pay more for their own defense and kind of trading waves over there, right? And so a lot of foreign policy people didn't like him on that. Okay. He was also very harsh against China. Now, he tried the whole trade war thing. It was a big gamble. It didn't work. Like realistically, it didn't work, did it? I guess in the end, it didn't matter. But, because we kind of thought that was going to be like the big issue in the election. Everybody forgot about the trade war thing, which I think is so hilarious because that was like all we cared about for a long time over here in trading was the trade war, right? Okay, but there was one thing that Donald Trump did that I would say was like getting it right. And it's not even so much getting it right. It's kind of a funny thing. So what was the thing that he got right? It was that he was friendly with the Saudis. This is really what it comes down to is be friends with the Saudis, and they agree to keep gas prices low, and that really helps you out. Like, that was the one thing he did that was probably like the one thing that really truly mattered foreign policy wise that he got right. And is it the right thing? I mean, like, I understand why there are things about the Saudis that Joe Biden doesn't like, but if you're just taking this straight, what is the most beneficial thing for us economically, both short, mid, and long term? It is to be friendly with the Saudis, right? And then Joe Biden comes in and just ruins all of that, and you've seen all of the economic carnage that has come from the Saudi. I mean, like the whole SPR thing. Oh my gosh, I don't like. Here's how I see it, okay? Because this might just be me hallucinating. I don't actually know these things for sure. I'm just kind of reading between the lines in the news. But here's how I see it. Joe Biden comes into office and he says, I don't like the Saudis. And so he starts doing, being mean to the Saudis. And the Saudis say, okay, fine. Then if that's the way that it's going to be, then we're going to make you pay for it. And the way that we kind of keep our economic power is by controlling oil. And if you're nice to us, then oil will be cheap. And if you're not nice to us, then oil would be very expensive. And we're going to make oil very expensive at the time in which, it's going to be the most damaging to you, Joe. And so that's exactly what they did. And so what did Joe Biden do? He said, well, I'm not going to let MBS get the best of me. I'm going to release stuff from the SPR. And so he did something that I don't think is very wise. I mean, was not the purpose of the SPR. Is not for you to get reelected. It's for if there's a war, okay? If China all of a sudden randomly decided to invade Taiwan tomorrow, it would be a big problem because we, the United States, wouldn't have the oil, Of course, remember that realize that if there was an invasion of Taiwan, it would be more like an embargo. So it would be a sea battle, really. That's going to require a lot of fossil fuels. And Joe Biden drained the SPR. Okay, well now he doesn't really have the SPR to fall back on. And the Saudis are still pushing oil prices. So if Joe Biden wins the next election, I think you go long oil, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe you go long oil right now. But who knows what happens in between and then and there. Maybe there's a recession and all of this other stuff. But if Joe Biden were to win again, I think that the trade that night is probably long oil. I mean, you've seen big moves in oil off of elections anyways, but yeah. So that's the thing on the foreign policy. And then the other side of it is the Ukraine war thing, right? Because Russia is kind of being threatening to Ukraine and everything. That was a thing that was going on when Donald Trump was president, right? I do believe, and this is just a theory of mine, so we could never prove this, but it really seems to me like Putin times his shenanigans, let's call them, when Democrats are president. I think that it's really just one of those cold, pathological, okay, I like the Republicans more than I like the Democrats, so I'm going to do all of my naughty stuff when it's a Democrat. I think that the Republicans would be more hawkish and like do something about it more than the Democrats. So I'm going to do it when it's a Democrat. I really think it's that simple. So I kind of think that, should I say suspect, theory, whatever it is, if Donald Trump had been president, I don't think that Russia would have moved into Ukraine. Can't forget that Trump going to North Korea. That was not an economic thing. That was, I think, the greatest thing that Trump did foreign relations. Well, yes and no. I mean, I think that was like his greatest accomplishment for sure. And I think that it was like really was an important success and things like that. But in the end, it kind of ended up being for naught, right? Like the situation over in North Korea hasn't really changed. I think that there's a much bigger problem over there in North Korea, that like there is a political establishment in place over there in North Korea that is pretty wedded to this whole destroy the West thing. And until you can find a way to undermine that, even if you had the full buy-in of the president, I'm not sure that you could really get like quote unquote peace. So it was a good try. But I mean, that was a lot of what happened with Donald Trump's presidency, right? As it was like, okay, good things they tried, there was good things that happened, but like they just didn't quite work out, Donald Trump supporters think that it was because of Democrats pushing against him. If he had more leeway, maybe. But the thing was that he was doing a lot of risky things that maybe don't necessarily turn out for you, And the world is complicated, and sometimes you just do everything correct and it still doesn't go your way. That can happen too. So foreign policy wise, I know, but like this, a funny thing is that like now foreign policy is like completely different, isn't it? Because foreign policy now is, what are you going to do with Ukraine? Well, now this one gets really complicated, I think, because like, what are we going to do with Ukraine, man? If I was president, I would have a very, very difficult time saying like, we're just not going to provide them any support. We're just going to let them, try and scramble on their own. And yeah, the Russians will probably overtake them and it's not our problem. That's what it sounds to me like Republicans want to do. Like seriously, I think that almost everybody, all of the candidates on the Republican side, this is not what the electorate thinks necessarily. That's maybe like 30-40% of the GOP electorate that believe this way, but the candidates have all gone on this, we can't afford to spend this money in Ukraine. And what is the net outcome of that policy? It's going to be Russia takes over Ukraine. Yeah, without full physical intervention, Russia's just going to set up a meat grinding wall. Yeah. So I think that what's more likely to happen over there in Russia is that the lines just solidify. And you might not necessarily see some sort of like explicit peace agreement, but, a sort of something similar to what has happened in North Korea, where the lines just solidify and everybody stays on their side of the line and it's just a really heavily militarized line. I think that that's what's going to happen. But the West is not talking like that right now. Yeah, there's no way. I agree. There's no way that Ukraine is going to get completely back to the pre-war scenario. I do think that there's this kind of this thing where, like, the Russians have taken that entire coastline, and for the Ukrainians to push back and take that area back, I think it really makes sense. Okay, both from a strategic and country perspective and all of these sorts of things. Without that, I feel like it's kind of an incomplete country and stuff. But like, for instance, Crimea, there's no way they're getting Crimea back without the West like really going all in. And this is the issue that we keep running into with the West, right? Is you know, a war, a lot of war has to do with just who wants it more. And the people in the West just don't want it. You know? The people in the West just don't want it. You know, I think that on one hand, they're afraid of escalation, right? But larger, I just don't think that the West is invested enough in this to really truly win it. Well, the Americans do largely support the Ukraine war, but it's like a matter of how much they support it, right? Like, Americans support the Ukraine war, but are they willing to give their lives for it? Hell no. Right? And I'm kind of saying, well, if you really wanted to win the Ukraine war, that's what I think the kind of dedication you would need. Not that I'm saying that people would need to give their lives for it, but that's the dedication that you need. Yep, we're not even sure we want to pay for it. That's exactly it. So instead, it's probably going to turn into this thing that like never ends. But the thing I was going to say is the thing that makes me unsure is that the West is not talking still. Like, the West has not come to that spot. Like, I'm seeing politicians talk about it and suggestions that that's kind of the way that it's going. But then at the same time, they're talking about like giving them F-16s and stuff at the beginning of next year. So like, I don't know. Do they try again next year? Maybe. Well, yeah, you're definitely paying for it. I mean, the amount of debt that we've taken on because of it is pretty insane, right? So how do you deal with that? Because I don't think it's an expense that's just going to go away, right? I don't think that it's politically possible to abandon Ukraine. I don't. Even if you had a president that didn't want it, I think that Congress would still and run around him to some extent. I don't know. I mean, if Donald Trump pulled we're just going to abandon Ukraine, I think it would be really bad for him politically. Like, I think he would lose a lot of support from it. You think that either side could abandon it and the balance of power would be the same? I'm not sure about that. I think that the Ukrainians would need a couple more months to really dig in to make their side of the line really truly stable. But like, that's the thing is does it just end like that? Or does Russia, lick their wounds and then come back in 5 years? Push again. Oh, well, so the Ukraine war is not on the high end of American priorities, but I think that you're kind of, I think that there's kind of a fallacy in that. I think that what you're trying to say is, well, because the Ukraine war is not Americans' top 5 priorities right now, that you as president could completely abandon Ukraine without consequences. I do not believe that to be the case. Just like it was with when Joe Biden came out of Afghanistan, when you really go back and look at the polling, I mean, it is the economy that Americans are the most like against Joe Biden on, and I think is the true like source of all of their angst against Joe Biden. But when you look at where did confidence in Joe Biden's regime, so call it regime, administration, I'm sorry. It's not a regime, it's an administration, okay? I'm gonna use proper words. But it happened when they pulled out of Afghanistan. That was when a large swath of Americans were just said, this is a circus. I don't trust these guys at all. They have no clue what they're doing, So if Donald Trump pulled out of Ukraine. Think it would be a pretty negative thing for his presidency. And more to the point, Donald Trump basically saying that we don't want to spend any more money in Ukraine could potentially be the thing that kills any Republican running against Joe Biden. It's the biggest vulnerability slash downside that Republicans have. Like just straight up of the downsides, the things that will hurt the Republican Party, the Ukraine war is the biggest one still. Why is the U.S. market pumping so hard in pre-market? I mean, I don't really feel like it's that strong, Traposi. So if we just come back over here to the volume profile, although there is something to take away from this that you guys should be aware of, I haven't mentioned. Okay, so like first of all, you know, it was kind of sell on Friday, and then they kind of bought up right here this morning overnight, another little jump up, mostly because some of the economic indicators and so forth that we got overnight from Europe and Asia and so forth were good looking. But it's only about 20 points, so I wouldn't say it's pumping so hard, but it is up slightly. Something that we need to keep in mind now is that we've had a pretty decent like pullback here. I mean, it's been about 5% decline from the most recent swing highs, not the all-time highs, but the most recent swing highs. We've come down about, you know, we went from down 5% from all-time highs to down 10% from all-time highs. Okay. But, you know, a lot of this has been driven by the hedge funds having to degross. So essentially, everything is going up so strongly that their short positions are losing, and in order for them to like maintain their portfolio balances and things that they need, they basically have to come over and get rid of their shorts. And we've had a short period where the shorts have kind of been okay, and so they've started to put the money back on. And so we are vulnerable for another set of short squeeze. So if the trade turns to the upside, I think you could see some short covering in those most shorted stock names again. Although just keep in mind that the CTAs are still kind of, you know, and the seasonality is definitely to the downside. So I'm sure you said this before, but what's the chart next to your face cam? The one called synthetic dollar index candles. Okay, yes, good question. So what I'm doing is, if you want to get the dollar index, there is like, it is traded on the ICE exchange, but like it's $100 a month for data from ICE, and retail traders don't really trade that. So getting data on what the dollar index is doing live is kind of difficult to get. And so what I have done is I've written an indicator that calculates the dollar index on its own using data gleaned from the FX futures. Okay. You would think that that's like a relatively simple thing, but multi-instrument indicators are actually, there's quite a few complications involved with it. And then on top of that, I've added a ton of different features. So that's what you get with the synthetic dollar index, and that is a part of my paid indicator suite. So you get a lifetime license for $100. You can get it at speculatorsset.com. Trade negative CPI for Ukraine in a heartbeat. Well, I don't think that inflation is high just because of Ukraine, right? So this is the bigger thing. So in terms of like, what should we be concerned about over here in the Treasury market? The big story today is that Nick Timiraos and the Wall Street Journal are also now saying that because of various factors that we are likely to be in a period where inflation is a concern for a long time, and that, you know, the period of historically low interest rates are probably over. That was from the Wall Street Journal. But basically, the concern that inflation won't be able to, will get stuck at 3% and not come back to 2% is like it's a real concern now. And that means, in my mind, that means interest rates probably continue to move up until we have a recession. Should we just offer the Ukrainians U.S. citizenship if they would take it instead of fighting? Nah. I really think that the most likely political scenario is that the sides just kind of solidify and it becomes this ongoing expense that's not like a crazy expense, but an ongoing expense similar to North Korea. That's my guess. But I guess I'm saying that scenario is not without risks, because there is the risk that the West just completely gives up and abandons Ukraine. There is the possibility that they decide to make another push next summer against the Russians. There's a possibility that when the Ukrainian offensive kind of subsides, that the Russians restart offensive operations. So I mean, it really seems to me, to be honest with you, that that the foreign policy establishment doesn't quite really know what to do or what to think either. I think that they're still in the they haven't come to the acceptance stage. Let's put it like that. I think that like in the stages of denial that they're like at bargaining, right? Give Ukraine a nuclear program. Well, one thing that may happen is if those lines solidify, then the West will come in and say, okay, yeah, if the Russians push over again, it's World War III. Well, by the way, while I've been yapping here, the Treasuries have had a slight little move lower, and we are back above 343. Which is an area that we spent quite a bit of time at last week. It's a little frustrating because what was it last week where I had a trade I had held 242. Oh wow, that would be up almost $70 now. That's funny. But 4-3 is an area that I tried taking a bunch of trades at last week and didn't have any success with. So there is definitely pretty consistent sell pressure, though. 10,000 contracts in the Treasuries, though. Not the best timing either, so I think I will stay out for now. This latest push lower kind of came out of nowhere too, so. I don't know. Everywhere I look, when I look at like what are the possible scenarios out from here, none of them really look very good. When I look at the larger political picture, because it's really not good for the United States to have Joe Biden as president for another 4 years. I'm really not convinced that Donald Trump would beat Joe Biden in a rematch. If Donald Trump did somehow win, I don't think that he would accomplish very much. I don't know if it necessarily has to like speed up the decline. I kind of feel like it's more like you just putting the progress of the country on pause for another 4 years, you know? I think like the big conservative kind of take is that we've done so much damage to our debt and so forth that it's basically like a, you'll never come back from it sort of a thing. I don't think it's quite like that. The United States still holds a pretty central and key part of the world economy to which there is not an alternative. And despite everybody yapping that there is going to be an alternative, there's not. They're not going to go back to like some gold standard currency or something like that. It's not going to have the effect that people think it will. But what it means instead is just like slow growth for, a long time, sort of a thing. Because the problem is after 2008, right, we had a lot of economic problems, and I personally feel that we never really addressed them, right? I think that there are some economic problems that were never really addressed, right? And because we had low interest rates, we didn't have to. It was just like everything kind of worked out and everybody was happy, and we never solved the problems, okay? So now we're kind of facing up to a similar sort of a situation where because of certain factors, we could have low growth. And this time we don't have excessively low interest rates to save us. So it's just going to be a slog. And yeah, you're probably going to continue to see more of a bifurcated economy where the people that are doing well do even better and the people that are more working class continue to struggle. Well, so far they haven't pulled back yet. 070. Well, we go back to last Thursday's levels. They were at 109.03 half, which is only a hop away. I don't know if they're going to go straight there, but it's only a hop away. So far, though, I would say that the action that we have is not too unusual for a Monday. I'd say it's a little bit more trendy than a Monday normally would be, but the change in cumulative delta and the degree to which we moved, I think, is about on par for what I would expect. And, if we were to breach 03 and push lower, that would could very quickly turn into a crazy move. And so that's why I'm a little bit skeptical about us getting down there, because I think that we're likely to still be like somewhat range bound today. But it's gotten to the point now where I feel like I have to pay a little bit more attention to it than I was. They are getting upticks at the very least. Now are we seeing any kind of movement anywhere else? Well, we are seeing the Japanese yen on a pretty consistent downtrend today. They're at 145.52. I haven't done a whole lot of reading about the Maui fires directly, just what, comes up in the discussion of everything else. I'm definitely seeing a lot of weird things about it, but this kind of turns into one of those things where like there's so many little things that are going on and there's no way to know like how serious they are and so forth to make much sense of it. They sent kids home from school to nobody when the fires broke out, and there's estimates that like 1,000 kids could be missing. Wow. Jeez. I mean, it certainly seems like there was a lot of big mistakes from an emergency planning side over there, right? I think that could be more, I think that there's kind of this narrative trying to develop that there's like either officials were incredibly incompetent or it's a conspiracy and they wanted these things to happen. The authorities are doing. Okay, so you're making you're promoting a conspiracy theory then, aren't you? I'm hearing it coming. Like they were kidnapped and sold into child slavery or something. Well, they're probably dead is probably what happened, right? I think that what's going on over there is that it was quite an unprecedented situation that probably nobody could have ever seen coming. And, you know, it was one that happened to challenge the systems that we had set up for it. Well, maybe it's because he wanted to talk about other things in the press conference. So. Like from in his mind, if he thinks that somebody's accusing them of like trafficking children or something like that, then yeah, I could totally see him being like, well, you know, this, if that's all you guys want to ask questions about, then this news conference is pointless and I'll just end it. You know? Ooh, 6. I don't know. I am kind of seeing some signs of liquidity hole here, so I'm a little weary of trying to go along with this. Child corpses in the rubble should take a backseat. Well, sorry, what exactly is it that you want them to do? Right, this is... See, this is where this thing happens, is that everybody will get, or a small subset of people will get, you know, really caught on a certain thing, right? And then... Of course, the people that are in charge are going to be defensive about it because basically they screwed up somewhere, right? And then them being a little defensive about it gets everybody else even more agitated about it, and that, you know, and then it turns into a conspiracy theory, right? Well, maybe that's not what you're implying, but I feel like the way this goes is. This was actually a way to traffic children, and you know, because I'm already, you know, I'm already seeing a lot of people saying this fire was set on purpose, that the communities allowed things to burn and get out of control on purpose. Sure, the children are probably dead out there. You release kids from school into a blazing wildfire and logic would dictate that. Wow, did they really just like, They really just said, okay, go home, even though there was like a fire going on? Okay, here's the thing that I don't understand is like, how does that... Listen, if there was a blazing wildfire in my neighborhood, you know, it wouldn't take out the whole neighborhood. It would die on its own before it took out the whole neighborhood. I really kind of am interested in what the community was like and everything. It must have been like rainforest everywhere with houses in between it and everything just having become incredibly dry or something. How did that, you know, take out the whole community? Is pretty wild. Invasive grass species? You're saying that the fire started with an electric cord? But, you know, the thing that I was trying to get at is that this looks like a fat tail disaster, right? That you can do everything that you can possibly think of, but with the way that things work, eventually you're going to have a disaster that is just like perfectly crafted. And it's not like it's crafted, but it's random, but it just happens to be random in perfectly the right way to just completely destroy all of your systems and have all of your systems fail, right? that it's basically like the thing happens in just the perfect way to expose all of the potential incompetence in the system, you know? Because there's always going to be incompetence. People are dumb. I mean, life works in strange ways, right? I feel you. Yeah, but I mean, that's the what I'm trying to say though is that, like, you know, that is just the nature of statistics, right? Eventually, you're going to get this outlier. It doesn't matter how hard you try and push against it, you know? And, you know, you get enough samples, you're eventually going to run into it no matter what, right? That's why you need systems that are anti-fragile, essentially, because the take that we typically have and the conclusion that people would come to when we blame it all on gross incompetence is that, well, if we just design all of our systems perfectly and we don't have any incompetence in the system, then things like this will never happen. And I'm saying now that they will always happen. They will always happen. It's just the way that the world is. That's why you need to have an anti-fragile system, so that when it does happen, you can deal with it. Because what's happening right now is it happened, and the response to after it happening is pretty crazy too, isn't it? Right? Like, Joe Biden's still on vacation. They were holding up with, like, the getting the support out there. The local officials haven't been able to deal with it very well at all, right? And why is this? Because we've created so many centrally managed systems that when the system does break down, they're not able to adapt to the facts on the ground. People with irrational, there's why countries are run by incompetence now. But the primary reason why you get incompetence is nepotism. But it's not a normalcy bias. It's an admission about how the world works, that there are fat tails. There are fat-tailed events, right? By failing to acknowledge that there's such a thing as a fat-tailed event, what we're doing is we're creating systems that are fragile. As soon as something goes wrong, it just completely falls apart, and then it's a disaster every step of the way. And then you start to get scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal. Because I guarantee you, this isn't the end of it, right? There's gonna be all sorts of, you know, this person should be taken to court, and this person for this and that, and probably nothing ever happens, right? But I guarantee you that people are going to be doing things that officials are going to be making bad decisions and so forth, and it's because the system is fragile. Haven't built anti-fragile systems. Is it a system for the powerful elite and not for the people? I really think that the elite think that they're doing the right things. I don't think that they necessarily believe that, like, oh, I'm going to set everything up in this system to benefit me and my children, and everybody else can get screwed over. Because you can see them coming in and making pretty manipulative changes to society based on a set of morals that they've adopted, right? And that they think are correct and proper. I think that it comes back to this thing that they don't understand the principle, and they do not practice the principle of anti-fragility. They think, okay, I should do the great thing, and so then most of these people, they're going to be like managers and people that have made systems, because that's how you come into that kind of money anyways, right? Is you basically become about managing systems. And so they come in and they start to do the same thing that they did at their business with the rest of the world. And they start trying to create these systems and bureaucracies and stuff like that. And the problem is that they're anti-fragile. Or sorry, they're not anti-fragile. They're fragile things. And so whatever it is that they create, the instant that it runs into any kind of a fat-tailed event that they weren't anticipating, the system just completely falls apart, right? The United States overall is a system that I would describe as mostly anti-fragile. That, like, the Constitution was written with an understanding of this idea of fragility. They understood how easy it was for us to lose liberty. They understood how easy it is for government to screw up. And so they created a system that had lots of checks and balances and should be able to deal with, you know, those sorts of challenges. And on like an overall society level, I think generally we're okay, because otherwise we would have fallen apart and gone the way of the dodo a long time ago. But what's happened is that we've also created a lot of executive departments, right? We've created all of these departments that always fall under the executive portions of government, whether it's at the national level under the president or at the local level, and those systems tend to be fragile. And so whenever we run into the fat-tailed disaster, whether it was Hurricane Katrina or this one, you know, the response just ends up being a complete disaster. You think if you lost 1,000 people in a wildfire, that's incompetence, not math? I mean, I don't know. Like, if the fire is everywhere, is there? I mean, there are situations where there was just nothing you could do, right? I don't know enough about this thing to know if that's what happened there. I can just already see the places where, you know, the system is misbehaving all of a sudden, right? Well, but a hurricane is different from a fire. Right. Hurricanes are pretty random in terms of where they deal the tornage, right? Because, you know, if the piece of wood hurling at your head at 200 miles an hour just happens to miss you and hits your friend, right? It's okay. But fire is a little bit more indiscriminate, right? Everybody in that area died if they were in the vicinity of the fire and they weren't able to get away. So I'm not going to say like they didn't make mistakes. Yeah, part of disaster preparedness is early warning and evacuation routes. Yeah, but what disaster there's no way that any disaster preparedness plan that they would have ever have made would have planned for the entire freaking city going up in flames. You know? Like, what I think you're trying to say is if people had not been incompetent, then there wouldn't have been nearly the death toll. And I'm not so sure that's true. I doubt that's actually true. There are some things that you just can't plan for, man. You know, that's why the US military works in the way that it does, right? So if there was not such a system in place, it was incompetence. No, so I would say that what I would agree as incompetence would be standard procedures that the city that you live in today has in place and the city that I live in today has in place. That's why I was saying earlier, if there was a fire, it wouldn't take out the whole city because there's not enough vegetation and everything for the fire to catch and continue all the way through my city, right? I don't think it's possible. There's no way that they would plan for that, right? But almost every place would think that, right? So if they did not have basic emergency preparedness systems in place that, say, my city has, then sure, I could chalk it up to incompetence. But I'm saying it is much more likely to be the case that you had a bat-tailed freak disaster that nobody ever fathomed could happen, and that as such, any of the plans that they would have made would have been inadequate unless they had known that that specific thing was going to happen. And it's not necessarily a matter of incompetence if nobody ever dreamed that the entire island could start on fire, you know? Because us over here, we're all sitting here thinking like, how does this happen? Right. Well, invasive grass species, you said, right? How can there be any fairness and gap in value? Well, there's no such thing. Value is a theoretical concept that's useful for some of our models, but you need to realize that this whole idea that the market moves to value and that the current price is supposedly indicative of all information is complete nonsense. The price is just a record of people buying and selling and nothing more. I mean, you realize you're talking about an island chain that's literally volcanoes, right? Okay, sure. Well, okay, so let's just say, for argument's sake, that the disaster was actually an eruption of some sort. Okay. Well, probably you would have some plans for the eruption, sure. But I'm going to bet you that in the case of like a real freak eruption that nobody was that was kind of not anticipated, that a lot of your systems would break down and fail. It's given you 2 commercials so far. Well, I'm glad you actually said something. So YouTube, it sent me this little thing, and it wanted me, to make a decision on, and so I just took like the default what they had to see what happens. So first thing I wanted to know is if people noticed and if it bothered them. I would expect it to bother people, but you're the first person to have said anything. And then I also want to see how it affects the stats. So I should only need 1 live stream for it. Yeah, like apparently YouTube is like toying with running ads midstream. And it's supposed to like pick when to show you the ads. That's funny. I thought I was the only one watching the ad, but then Uzi had ad block and didn't see it. That's interesting. So I don't think that I will turn. Let's see here. Where even was it? Monetization. Let YouTube insert mid-roll ads for you. And I put balanced. So when tomorrow, because I'll probably forget. Well, maybe we should do it. I'm thinking maybe we should do it for the whole week. But then after the week, remind me to turn it off, and I will turn it back to only when I choose to show them. right? Because I can choose to come in and say, okay, nothing's really going on here. Now's a good time to take a break and stretch and so forth, and then run the ad and come back, right? I don't know, but if I come back and like I made $50 from it, then maybe I'm just gonna make you look at ads every day. I highly doubt that happens though. That's an interesting thought though, that are mid-roll ads during live streams very effective? I on one hand, I want to think that the CTR on an ad like that would be higher than on a regular video, but I'm not sure that's actually true. Because that's kind of been the issue with live streaming, is that like the companies have kind of had a hard time making it, like YouTube in particular, they've had a hard time integrating it with the rest of their ecosystem and really getting money from it and so forth. So the reason why I'm kind of thinking this is like, wow, if they did this and it started making them, a lot of money from the ads, and it actually ended up being effective for the ads, then what it would mean is that YouTube would put more effort into the live streams. Because as it is right now, like they kind of started to push it a little bit, and then they realized that reduced engagement on the website, and so like they cut streams off. And that's why we went from like getting 50 views a day back to like the typical 20. Because the typical 20 is just what we get from those of you that almost manually come in and watch the stream, right? 50 was people actually being directed to it, being shown on their page and like, oh, what's this? I'll go and take a look. Do you use the tape? So I look at the DOM and I make a lot of decisions based off of what I see in the DOM. But ultimately, my edge still will come primarily from informational inefficiencies that I know of in the market. Anyways. It's weird to me that it's like, okay, so like with the government, when the government screws up, right? It's like, well, they're incompetent, etc., etc., etc. I feel that that's too generous, right? Like really, when you think about it, what's worse? That you had incompetent people in place that made poor decisions? Or that's the nature of the thing. That the nature of the thing is for there to be big mistakes and it to just turn into complete disaster because of the nature of fat tails. That eventually something is going to happen that just perfectly blows up your system. Because that's what happens in the market, right? So everybody creates all of these hedge funds and they think that they have all of the little things figured out, and then the market will just somehow find a way to screw all those people up, just like it's doing with the hedge funds over the past month, right? I feel like that's kind of a worse thing overall, because it kind of suggests that you can't get rid of it, right? You can just try and deal with the aftermath. Make it so that when that happens, that it doesn't completely end the system. Like the thing that I would be saying, or the thing that I'm concerned about with that is, will that community ever come back? Because it kind of sounds to me like maybe it won't. I don't know. Like there's all these people like real estate vultures and everything coming back on it, but it'll be really hard to bring that community back the way that it was. A lot of people are just going to move away, right? But if we have an anti-fragile system, we can keep going, right? Bad things will still happen, but it doesn't mean the end, right? You'll take losses, but you don't blow your account. Are hedge funds blowing up? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say they're blowing up, but hedge funds have been having a rough summer, yes. The long-short hedge funds in particular have been that are kind of been getting screwed around. Nice tan. Oh, I just turned the aperture length on the camera down a little bit. I probably should, like, I thought it looked okay, so I left it alone. But I should probably turn it up to 500 there and then be nice and bright like it was before. And then especially if I come into the filters and everything, I don't know if filters. Find that. Oh, there we go. That's a little bit. That's better. That's just, you have to overcome the cinetone, which is kind of like a log thing. So it's giving me way more dynamic range than I need, and so I'm just kind of like filling it out. That's fine. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Right here. Still got that annoying little bruise or whatever on my nose, but it's getting better. Oh, I missed this comment from Eddie Steve. I'm on premium YouTube, so no ads. That's interesting. Well, so we did kind of form the liquidity hole here in this area like I thought, but the 5 years still looks incredibly heavy. So $10. Well, it's a lot, 30,000 that's transacted there, right? I'm still of the mind where I have a difficult time trying to jump on board this, but it's not exactly the way that you want to start your week if you're concerned about higher interest rates, right? The Treasury's just trying to push even further. You know, if they were to breach the 03.5 today. Sorry, if they were to breach 03.5 and turn it into a trend day, that would not look very good for the rest of the week, would it? Water tastes kind of meh. Probably need to wash it, but I think I need to get a new bottle. There you go, Zero Hedge. No, central banks won't save us this time. Yep, probably right. It's probably right. That the things that kept us afloat last time around probably will not be able to do this time around because of inflation. What's this? Goldman looks exit another Solomon-driven mass market business line. So I'm starting to see this, like, how do I put it? Agenda against Solomon himself, which I kind of suspected would happen eventually, but yeah, it's here. There's a group of people that think that Goldman's woes are all about David Solomon. So, in yet another sign of Goldman's retrenchment back to its core competency and away from profiteering off of subprime consumers, the recently embattled Wall Street legend has reportedly weighing the sale of part of its wealth business catering to high net worth clients, shifting its focus back to serving the, quote, ultra rich. why the Goldman of 2008 would be shorting the Goldman of 2018. That's probably true. Financial Times reports the Wall Street firm said on Monday it was currently evaluating alternatives for its personal financial management business, which encompasses Goldman's registered investment advisor operations and supervises about $29 billion in assets. Oh, that's not that big. So that must have been a smaller financial advisory that was for not so much high net worth individuals, I guess. This is another one of those, like, getting rid of a business that they hadn't finished getting off the ground yet. The deal came as Goldman was pushing to serve a broader array of customers. While it is part of Goldman's wealth business, it is symbolic of the strategic shift away from CEO David Solomon's ill-fated push to manage money for a broader set of customers. In fact, this is the second time in recent months that the bank seeks to unwind a deal that current Solomon executed. The bank this year put up for sale the online business Green Sky, which was acquired in 2021. Having already noted problems at their Marcus unit, paring back its business as charge-offs accelerate, it appears Solomon's decision to move away from the super-rich, so-called ultra-high net worth clients, whose wealth is at least in the tens of millions of dollars, is an unmitigated disaster. As we noted previously, it should be no surprise why Goldman is trying to dump its consumer finance division fast. Projected real estate loan losers under the... okay. Bank said that it plans to grow its core wealth business serving ultra-high net worth clients, reiterating aspirations from its investor day in late February. The question is, will Solomon be spinning the discs at the helm of this ship as they return to core competence? No, I don't like this because, like, they have the core business, that's great and everything, but in order for them to continue to grow their earnings, they're going to need to expand their business somehow. And how do you expand the business when all you're focusing on is the high net worth clients? I don't know about that one. So I haven't looked at their stock price since last week, so Monday is as good a day as any to check. Should probably check it on Fridays and not Mondays, but okay. Does look like the Treasuries pushed to new lows there again. Well, GS looks to be struggling just about like every other bank, which is that it's been going sideways since about 2022. But it doesn't look too bad. I think this downtrend is exhausting buyers. Well, it doesn't look like there was that much pushback on the new lows, was there? What I'm seeing right now still appears to me to be the Japanese yen just getting savaged. And that makes me a little bit nervous about getting into a trade because, we've seen the Japanese yen hit back on these several times, right? So it remains to be seen whether I could really short it here and get away with it or not. That's not unusual for the inside bid or an offer, though, D. 1,400. What's going on right here is probably more to do with the correlations with the Japanese yen. So just seeing oil taking a little bit of a dive lower here in the past 5 minutes. Let's see here. What's our leaderboard say? Biggest winner, natural gas, soybeans, silver. Then NQ at 0.82. Biggest losers, UB, negative 1%, and wheat, negative 1.76. Well, they're still able to trade 06. '06 is as good a price as any, I suppose. I'm not getting like strong signs of pressure, and I'm a little bit skeptical about the timing right now, but they're awfully close. They're awfully close. So I'm coming over to Reddit now, and I can see that I'm still getting replies to stuff about Linus Tech Tips. Any thoughts on why AMC is free fall? Is it really in free fall? Well, AMC is in one of those most shorted names list, isn't it? Reverse split out, huh? What are they going to reverse split to? Back to $8? It shouldn't. I don't know if that matters. I mean, I think that there are a lot of traders, and especially retail traders, that because of what they've seen happen with splits, that, you know, they think that anytime there's a split that there's a trading opportunity for it. But when you're talking about a stock that's already $4, and if they split, you know, I don't think that that's really going to affect too much who is actually trading it. It matters when it's like Tesla and Google and Apple, when, you know, you're talking about something that's hundreds of dollars for even one share. But for this one, probably doesn't matter. It does look like there was a big gap lower a couple of days ago, though. I think that more broadly, that movie making, let's say, seems to be one of the most troublesome, most troublesome sections of the economy right now. And I mean, they're having a writer's strike and everything, so I'm not too hopeful for the quality of Hollywood productions over the next 2 to 3 years. You know, that always has an effect on that, and they're doing pretty crappy anyways. And all of these blockbusters failed, so they're going to have to re-gear themselves into making different kinds of shows. And will people really come out to the movie theater as much anymore post-COVID is still an open question. So I could see a number of reasons why AMC might be kind of a struggle right now. Did get a more decent balance there. There's this one guy on Discord that I feel like is a little... He kind of has... He's one of those people where I feel like that his opinion is just the normal conservative opinion and is like way oversimplifies everything. Linus Tech Tips will be fine. I'm sure most of the people unsubscribing from him are the same losers who deleted Twitter and joined Mastodon when Elon took over. Oh, that was a couple of days ago. Are we trading today? I don't know, to be honest with you, man. But we've been pretty quiet. So far, it hasn't really been the best market for us. We did get a good move at one point. So it's been well over an hour, though, since that happened. But when we came from 10 down to here, that was an okay move. But not really the way that plays out was not really something that I would have expected or anything like that. So I'd say that it's likely that we just hold today and don't do anything. But you never know, because they're kind of putting pressure on this downside, and I am concerned that we might just, that the floodgates might open, you know what I mean? Watch by the end of the day, it'll turn out to be metaphor. Well, I think, so let's come back to the chart here, right? This morning, I think that we have pretty good evidence for a meta order, right? But that was well over 45 minutes ago. Now we've just kind of been sideways. So is there another leg to this meta order is the question. But some evidence that there being a meta order out there, huh? Because cumulative delta is moving consistently in one direction, and it's highly correlated with price. But the other side of that is that things seem to be following the Japanese yen pretty closely. And that's been a whole mess because as of late, we've seen them like couple and decouple and all sorts of stuff a lot. So don't know if that one is too reliable. I'm just kind of looking around because we had a pretty long discussion about the political landscape in the morning, and now I'm just kind of looking around for other things, what's going on this morning. I'm telling you, it's going to be one of those weird weeks because There are some major events happening this week, but then we're also in a time period where things tend to be a little bit quiet. I'm getting like these when I go to Reddit. It's for some reason suggesting these weird subreddits to me, like outfits and stuff like that. And the posts that I see from there, I'm always like, what the heck? Which one for their first day back at university? And I'm like, that's a little bit, that doesn't look like you're a college student when you're wearing that. Let's put it that way. I mean, they had an okay rise back up to 07, but they gave up the 06 pretty easily there, guys. It kind of looks like that they probably will make another push, but that who knows when it will happen and what prices you might get before it happens. I could try getting involved here now. I don't think that these are the best prices, but Well, the Japanese, so is a little bit of a divergence going on here because I just saw the Japanese yen plunge to new lows and the treasuries are holding here, so. I don't know about that one. So I kind of put a test order out there and they hit me right away. So that doesn't necessarily bode well for us to be turning down here now. So the market maker's that willing to take the order. A little sketchy. Kind of means that my reading of that particular area is maybe wrong. That doesn't mean that they can't go down later, but I think that my reading of the current conditions was probably wrong. I think that what's happening to me is I just see that 03 half and it just looks so juicy to me, you know? Well, I'm not too sure that that was much of anything, though, because the Japanese yen kind of pulled back a little bit from those lows. So I think we need to be patient. Okay. What's that about, Uzi? Oh, there's a downtick. Oh, that I took it. Yeah, well, I'm not too wedded to it yet, though. Oh, yeah. Well, what happened was I put out a test order and they almost immediately filled me, so I wasn't too happy about that. But look, they did take a tick down there, so it looks like the trade isn't crazy. I'm just seeing that Thursday's low at 0.3 just looks like incredibly vulnerable. And the timing is right. It has been more than 45 minutes since the end of that meta order that took us down here. So oh my gosh, I probably shouldn't be reading Reddit right now, but okay. From r/Evangelion, how bad are the sexual scenes in Neon Genesis Evangelion? I'm watching it tonight and I'm aware there are a few scenes throughout the show. For reference, I'm 14 going on 15 in 3 days, and my parents aren't a big fan of sexual content, but I don't mind to a certain degree. In the context of the scenes, I would like to know if this is a show I should only watch at night while my parents are asleep, or if this is something I can watch whenever. I only ask about the scenes as my parents don't really care about violence or go. You should definitely wait until your parents are asleep. Because it's not like they're definitely in there, and it's not like any of them are bad. It's always that like makes you feel uncomfortable, but nothing truly bad ever happens. But your parents probably won't understand that. So yes. Play it safe. Just watch it when they're asleep. I probably shouldn't say something like that, but second ago, they're right on the edge there. I'm feeling okay about this so far, but they're not really, that offer is going to have to stack up a lot if they're going to take out new lows, right? Oh, interesting. So quite a few orders just cascaded there into the low of the day. There is an iceberg there. We'll see if they push through it, if there are any stops. Octavia says brutal. It is kind of looking a little... Okay, there's a new low. Only by 2 contracts, but it did tick. So no stops there. Because, you'd be concerned about a new low, how many people would have a stop set. Well, nobody had like explicit stop set there. So there is some liquidity there. 0.4. I know it looks like they're going to make a run for it, but it also looks like there is going to be some liquidity here below us that they're going to have to get through if they want to break out to new lows and run. You have technology. Well, a lot of those orders that you see there on the inside, D, are just saving the spot in line, right? So as soon as it ticks in and there's any risk of them being executed, the algorithm pulls it because their intention was only ever to just save their place in line. Is that legal? I mean, yeah. I think one of the problems with like these spoofing laws is that there is definitely like an intention element to it. So the reason that they were able to prosecute those guys at JP Morgan for manipulating the gold market was because they had these conversations of them talking about it and saying, you know, well, just spoof so that you can get it filled and go to lunch and that sort of a thing, right? That's really different from these algorithms that are just holding a place in line. And it's not necessarily against the law to cancel an order, right? So that's where I think you have to have a little bit of context on it, right? So where I would be like paying attention is like this 3406, right? So if we tick down to 04 and all of the sudden there's only 400 contracts on bid, then I'm like, oh, okay, right? Because there was some liquidity there and it pulled big time. But when you're looking at the book here and you'd say like there's 2,500 contracts per price, generally speaking, and if when it ticks down to it, 1,400 of that pulls, so that there's 1,000 left on the bid or the offer or whatever, that's entirely normal. I would not read too much into that. Now, something I am noticing that is a little curious is that on this little move lower, the offers have been stacking a little bit, particularly that 3,600 sitting at 05. Okay, so we traded 2207, so it does look like some of that liquidity that had been stacked there did not fall through. Okay, so there's 03 half, 24, 23. Now I'm starting to see a little bit of panic in the market here, huh? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, go, go, go. I think I read that one almost perfectly. So now the question is just, can Seth get a good exit? Because the past few times he has not. I am slightly concerned about the amount of liquidity that did trade there. Meta baby, yeah. Well, that sell was incredibly aggressive though. Like you compare the velocity of the previous move down versus this one, they're like not even comparable, right? So I think a lot of that was that there probably was stops triggered after they breached the previous week's lows. I am seeing like the icebergs and stuff. So how excited am I actually about this? I think that this is one of those situations where those icebergs can totally mean continuation too, though. Like, micros are pretty thick there. Okay, they busted through the iceberg with 6,000 contracts. Not a strong offer, only a few contracts went into the lows, but it did touch it. Now we're kind of like in no man's land again, where I have to come out to like a daily chart. There is still 108.26 half, like well below us. So that's way down here. That was last year's lows. So now there's a big old order at evens, so there might be some liquidity there as well. They traded another 5,000 to 20, huh? 5 years pushing hard though. Look at that. The 5 years just going to drag them down with them, isn't he? The 10-year is lagging a little bit, so I'm seeing that there's a lot more liquidity in the 10-year than there are the other two contracts, and these two contracts just keep pushing down and dragging it down with it. And meanwhile, are we seeing the Japanese yen continue? Yep, surely, but not as quickly as this has been going. This is definitely stops, right? Kill him. Well, it sure is looking good right now, isn't it? But I'm still a little weary about this one. About whether I can hold it or not. I feel like that was a little... yeah. Okay, well, somebody took me, so I took 16. So took one extra one to pay for the commissions, and I took a $15 winner. That's pretty good. I'm concerned about the amount of volume that's traded hands here. Because it really looks to me like a stop run with icebergs looking there to catch it. In the pocket? Yeah, I don't know. Do you think I should have held it? Like I could have gotten 2 ticks more. Can always go for more, but... I don't know, man. It's also a tough one, isn't it? It's been a long time since I've seen something play out quite like this with that much absorption against it. So I'm kind of torn between that's a lot of absorption and that was a really significant breach, you know? Another thing that may happen is we may get that little slip lower and then revert back to the 0.2 you know? Can you show the ZN chart from today? Oh yeah, sure. Like the volume profile chart? Or do you want to see the short-term chart? There's the volume profile chart. The short-term chart is the one that's interesting, right? So here you have like, okay, meta order sell, 45 minutes, meta order sell, but this one is like insane. Right, this one is like 25,000 contracts, just boosh. And pretty massive icebergs absorbing against it. When was open? So our session starts right up here. Wow, so you really, if you were sitting there, like you could have just gone short right at the open and never had any excursion against you. That's pretty crazy. There's another one. So I could have gotten the other 5. Could have gotten the other 5. Shouldn't have done it. Oh, actually, more 10. Would have been a $25 winner. But look at it revert back up there. Yeah, and now I definitely am wary about touching it. That looks to me like a little bit of excess there that would be worth taking a trade-off for. So I could definitely take it off at 434. Made 20 bucks. That's cool. I think that would have been a reasonable trade. Now the other side of this was, should I have taken it with 2 contracts? Because I've been taking a couple of these today. I think that given that it was a Monday and the uncertainty that I have even now having it do all of that, it was totally okay that I only chose to do it 1. But in retrospect, we probably should have done 2 contracts, right? So what's your guess? Will ZN fall lower or will they reverse? I think that at the very least that we're probably going to go sideways here for a while now. There may be a slight push a little bit further, but it really looks like it is likely to develop some volume at 0.1 or 0.2. Yeah, I could pull one and then keep the other one running for sure. I don't know if I would in this situation, though. I don't know. That's a tough hypothetical. Depends on the time frame, because I'm not too sure how much lower we're going to go this week, but in the longer term, I'm kind of feeling like that before the end of the year, we should see a breach of those 2022 lows. But like I said, I'm still a little bit concerned, because I think that a large portion of this activity that I'm seeing is stops. If it's a stop run, then I cannot trust that flow as much, right? So if it's somebody, their meta order selling, etc., 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 that's just going to go on all day. But if it's just breaching because it hits some technical level that gets everybody's jimmies in the whatever the phrase is, that's not one that I necessarily really want to push. Where are the lows? They were at 26 half, I believe. So quite, it's another jump. I mean, that would be a pretty big move for a Monday, but the amount of volume that they're trading it could happen. Now, another thing that we might do that could be curious is retrace all the way back to 03 half. If they do that, what happens? I read this thing yesterday from, I think it was Zero Hedge. I think most of the financial stuff that I read these days comes from Zero Hedge, but these guys at JP Morgan and a couple of other places have been like going long bonds, thinking that, it's going to come back and that now's a good place to get into bonds. And of course, this more recent increase in interest rates over the past 2 or 3 weeks has absolutely burned these guys, right? But coming into the later half of last week, these analysts were like doubling down on it again. So this one is certainly going to be causing them some stress, right? Losers. Well, everybody will be on the wrong side of it eventually, right? Sure does seem to me like the premise that they're working from, though, isn't a very good one. By the way, as we're doing this, the dollar is getting stronger. Dollar gets stronger as the money flees the Japanese yen over to the dollar. So they're still about where I got out. So with the way that I'm seeing it go right now, though, this is where it's totally possible that they breach new lows, but the movement is probably going to be a lot more varied from here, right? Like if they do reverse, it's kind of be back and forth around here. There's going to be a lot of, working things out between the traders. If it does go lower, it's probably going to pause here for a little bit for at least first. Well, they're lining up for it. The 30-year in particular seems to be pressing here, so it looks like maybe I could have gotten even more out of this because of the 30-year. But I'm seeing the yield curve shift around a little bit and maybe possibly turning into a steepener, because the 30-year end of it just got crushed there. What was the price they got? It was 20, right? Yep, 32. 32. And you got 6. That's 20. That's 25. Okay. Gotta keep track of how FOMO I need to feel if this keeps going, right? It's the way it always goes, though, is like, you know, last week I tried to hang on to them and I had a couple that never really quite went the way that I wanted. And so here, the one where I take the quick profit, does this the one that just runs? Oop, there it is. So there. But I would say a little bit of fight at that half. I would say that since that initial rush, probably oh, it looks like since I got out, there's been another 8K, but then that first time that the lows have been created, there hasn't been too much of a change. No longer, the Japanese yen is pulling back a little bit. Eat what you keep. No, I'm not going to eat it. I'm just going to keep it in there. Again, though, I'd have to say a lot of volume traded there, right? Like, it's a pretty mild change in cumulative delta for how much volume exchanged hands there, right? Oh, new home sales. Well, that's tomorrow, right? I feel a little sleepy today. I don't know what my... If I, like, close my eyes and, like, take a nap, I think I'm okay. 30 minutes left. That's a big order there to 1/2. Now I'm really having a hard time staying awake. I'm going to stand up. Surprised the baby is still fast asleep. I think that should mean, though, that my wife took the other one to his dentist appointment. So hopefully that's going okay. So I'm still seeing large amounts trading on both sides, but they're sitting right down there at the bottom of it. That's often a recipe for it to make another 1 or 2 ticks lower and then bounce hard again. Although it's bounced off of here like twice at least now, if not 3 times. So it's kind of like I've seen some signs of like meta orders going the opposite way, but they don't last very long. Oh, so what's this thing with Twitter is removing the ability to block people? So can I see zero hedge now? Nope, I'm still blocked. When does it end? Why haven't we asked this before? They blocked me because I said something mean about Bitcoin. I responded to one of their posts about Bitcoin, pointing out the fallacy of what they were saying, and they didn't like it. I think they interpreted it as, you know, all of these bots are people saying stuff about crypto are bots, and so we should block them. But yeah, I always forget. Right. Well, the thing was that I'd always would kind of make comments just like I can't help myself sort of comments, you know? And then one time I made one that got like a lot of likes, like a lot of people saw that what I was saying was correct, right? They're saying, well, it doesn't necessarily matter that cryptocurrency is using solar as to power their mining operations, because that's just solar that would have gone to something else. It's still a waste of energy. Unless it's energy that wouldn't exist without cryptocurrency, which was not the case, right? And if it's solar that did exist because of cryptocurrency, then you're not actually you're just not moving the needle. You're offsetting yourself, but anyways, a lot of people saw that and liked that post and thought it was a good response, and that's when I got blocked. Came back the next day and I was blocked. I want a Mercedes CLG. Is that the new supercar they're supposed to be announcing this week, or did announce this week? You know what my problem is in this world is there's just too many cool things to look at. Can only imagine if I was like a billionaire, you know, that would be, I think I would have such a difficult time being a billionaire, because I would want to be like, okay, let's put a bunch of time and energy into remaking this car. Let's put a bunch of time. And a billionaire, you don't have time to do that stuff, you know? I keep pulling my self back and like, you need to focus on this. You need to focus on this. And it's just, there's just not enough time in the world, man. There's not enough time Just yellow. Well, no, we got a plan. We're going to save up $100,000 and we're going to start a hedge fund.
Block buy.
Whoa. Okay. It's a big block buy there in the treasuries. How big was that? I almost 33.26. Just rent someone else. Okay. Like, here's the thing. I not that I've ever done it, but like getting a big expensive car so that I can race it is not really something that interests me. I don't think that would be my rich person hobby. Okay, here's why I say this. Okay, I think that it is important to make things, and I mean like handcrafted items that people would typically buy, but that you can handcraft them yourself and make something that is of better quality than what you would buy at the store, or that is more suited to your specific use case. Best example is furniture. Custom furniture is king. You can get a piece of custom furniture built for that specific space. You can get quality that's better. You can make it look exactly the way that you want. You know, the only limit is your imagination with custom furniture, right? The reason why we have many of the problems that we have today, in my opinion, with entitlement and just like people being so disconnected from reality. You know, you get these people that are into politics and they're like super upset because they want to cut their penises off and things like that. Like, how do you get large numbers of people like so disconnected from reality like that? Well, I think that the consumer economy is one of the things that does that. Is it just disconnects you from how things actually come to be. And so I think that in order to keep yourself grounded, that it is important to know how to make things so that you have the experience of appreciating the process of making something. Right? So if I was getting into like rich person hobbies, you know, I wouldn't want too much of my time to be spent on a consumer rich person hobby, like buy somebody else's car, have somebody else do all of the work for you, and you just drive it. That to me would completely defeat the point of like, you know, being into cars. Isn't like the point of being into cars is taking a car that's like totally beaten up and building it into something new, or you know, just you know, making the modifications and, you know, making your car better than other people. Like that's what they do in F1. Right? It's the process of building it is like half of the hobby. Do I really have the time to do that? I don't feel like I do. You know, because I want to build furniture and I have a hard time finding the time to do all of that. You know? And I think that if I was going to do something that was, you know, where I was just consuming, that I would want it to be a lot more a lot milder. And more cutting edge too, you know, like something that I do want to get into is first person view drones. Oh, I've seen so many cool things with first person view drones, and you can make those yourself too. That whole thing is cool. That's still a cutting edge thing. You know, that's kind of more of the kind of hobby that I would do, you know. But some of these other things that are really common among rich people, like I'll tell you another thing that I don't think I could see myself doing is having a yachting. I saw this video the other day about yachting, and they go into how they'll go to these places where there's lots of yachts, like film festivals, and pretty girls will go to, you know, get on the yachts, and it's practically prostitution. And a lot of women, like famous actresses, part of how they became famous was because of connections that they made while yachting. That, you know, the rich guy pays for them to become famous, essentially. It's like selling your soul. Nah, I don't want to do that. I think it would be so hard for me to justify owning a yacht, like a yacht. Like if I was a billionaire, I wouldn't be buying one of these yachts like what Jeff Bezos has. How do these guys justify all of this like diversity exclusion or diversity? What is it? DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion things. How do they live with themselves? Doing all that, pushing all this climate change stuff, and then maintaining a yacht that's millions of dollars a year just to maintain and emits more carbon than like most of us do our entire lifetime in 1 year. No, thank you. I would love to go sailboating. Sailboating sounds like a thing. So that a yacht club, I could sailboat, but I wouldn't be into mega yachts, you know? Buy a Park City home, Bomba home, London home, and a jet and a yacht. So I think I do want to do the jet thing, even if I don't become a billionaire. I've been looking at this. So my wife is a flight attendant and her ex is a pilot, and it kind of seems to me that I could get to the point where purchasing a private jet would be a valuable investment for me. There would be something that I could make money from and would help on my taxes and stuff. Isn't that crazy? I don't know a whole lot about it. It's just kind of like a prelim. It was just something that I kind of put into my back pocket that was like, okay, you know, in 5 years I might want to look at the private jet thing. Which is kind of funny, but Ricky Gutierrez bought a jet. Cool. Wouldn't be like a super crazy jet. It'd just be like a normal jet, right? I need to ask my wife because my father-in-law does not like flying, and I think it has mostly to do with being like enclosed spaces and stuff. So I'm wondering, okay, but if it was a private jet with a roomy cabin, would that help? I don't think it would, but could try. I kind of feel like that I am really happy with the way that I have my life set up. And while there might be some nice things to do, like it would be nice if the pantry was larger, for instance, there's not really a whole lot of I would want to change. And that if I have success in starting a hedge fund enough and so forth, I don't think I would change very much. Maybe get that home up in Park City for sure. That vacation home up in Park City that you know can house the whole extended family. That'd be great. Okay, so far I've been reading this pretty good that we were in the like post meta order regime change area again. So again, that doesn't mean that they won't go lower later. It's just that we're kind of stuck in this hole for now, and it's kind of difficult for them to sell much below 01. Only 3 million for a G4. What does a G4 mean? Yeah, 3 million, it would be about on the spot about how much I'd be looking to do, but I would definitely have to be a multi-millionaire at that point before I'd get something like that, right? Oh, for a Gulfstream jet. Gotcha. Well, no, like for a jet, I would take a loan out on it and I would turn it into a business. So that I can write it off, right? Because that's the whole thing with the jet, is that it becomes it's a business expense that that gives you a really big tax write-off. That's why they do it. And then you're paying interest on it, and you don't pay taxes on the interest, and it just, yeah, decreases your taxable income. Maybe we'll get there. I don't know, guys. So I was thinking about this because somebody made a post on one of my threads like, okay, well, but how come he's not doing it for a living, blah, 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 blah. You know, if you find somebody being successful with this, and they'd show that they'd be a professional and doing it full time or something like that. I was like, no. You find the person on YouTube that's streaming every day, and they claim they're professional, I will find you a liar. That's what you're gonna find. Because anybody that is truly professional with this is not allowed to really even be online, right? Like the people at the large institutions, their social media activity is completely restricted. They're not allowed to talk about trading. And, you know, a retail trader that gets that far, they're going to be super, super busy. Unless the YouTube is a significant portion of their business. Doesn't mean that they're not having like success in the trading. It's just, but it does mean that, like, you know, probably a good portion of their lifestyle has to do with what they make from the YouTube. You know, there's a reason why Axia did things the way that they did. That doesn't mean that they don't know how to trade or anything like that, but it's not their only source of income, right? Nah, don't post links to other channels, please. There's a lot of people on YouTube though that are just full of shit, though, right? I say right too much. I need to get out of that habit. I've seen a lot of people coming in and making these claims about that they're taking $1 million trades, and they're just completely full of crap. I've also seen a lot of guys that they were putting up $1 million trades and they blew it all and they lost everything because they didn't really actually know what they were doing. They just got lucky. That happens a lot too. So, but I'm not talking about you trade, because listen, day trading is a great hobby. There's a lot that you can learn from day trading that will help in other places of your life. It is a great wealth enhancer, but it is not the best wealth builder. And, you know, I'm thinking the whole thing is like, I'm doing pretty well. So then you take that and then it's like you got everything that you want and you can just rest, right? That's what most people would do. And I want to go further because the thing that really interests me is the managing the money part of it. And the market aspect of it. And so I want to take it further, not necessarily for the money, but that would be a benefit of it, you know. And that's the way that I'm planning on taking it is you know, like a hedge fund route, not day trading, much more serious stuff. Like I feel like we've done pretty good and we understand the day trading pretty well, and I want to take it to the next level now. And I feel that the next level is managing other people's money. Not like a prop firm, but like a fund. So that's what I'm going to try and do. Well, they were kind of threatening that downside again, but they've backed off for now. I think I got about another 5 minutes here before we should get going. I'm feeling okay about that trade. I could have held on for a little bit longer, but only five ticks that I missed out on. That's not bad. That's certainly a lot better than some of the other trades I've had, right? So that makes me feel good that we're kind of getting back on track. That's a good start to the week. And with the way that we've broken, do you think that 100K is enough though? Okay, so the way that I want to do it is, you know, you're going to start a fund and you're going to fundraise and ask other people to contribute money. So the reason why I want 100K is because I believe that will be a large enough initial investment for me to be able to maintain control of the fund and for me to actually make significant amounts of money from the fund. Because what often happens is, you know, you start with nothing. So first of all, because you're not putting your own money up, it's very difficult to convince other people to put their own money up into it. And then when you are successful, you're making money, but not enough to leave the fund, and you basically become a slave to the fund instead of becoming one of these multimillionaires. So that's why the goal is 100,000. And maybe we don't need that much before going to market with it, but that's the plan, is 100K in 5 years. Oh, the video that D wanted to link me to was an Axia guy. That's funny. There's definitely some guys at Axia that do trade big wads, though. Not trying to bash on Axia. I'm just trying to say that there's a difference between like prop firm and like firms that are doing education in YouTube and like a fund. I think that a fund is a much more serious world. Step up. Yeah, no, that one was not fake. Those guys at Axia are totally trading live money. And they have like they have the news, and then they're trading the asset based on the order flow after the news. Wait, is Brannigan not a part of Axia anymore? I didn't know that. Do I need to go and read his Twitter more closely? No, he's made content for them since 2 years. So maybe he has a fund. He's still at Axia, and he has a fund that's separate from that. Yeah. But there's this other category of people that are like, so that the thing that started me going off on this was the person that made a comment, and I was like, well, like the kind of person that you're looking for isn't going to be on YouTube. I am this rare intersection wherein I was close enough to the professional world to see what was going on and to be able to relate to you some of the most key pieces of information from that world, but not so close that I'm unable to tell you about it. I didn't know that. I have noticed that I don't hear from Brannigan as often on Twitter. I do really feel, though, that if you're truly a successful trader, that the move is start your own fund, right? Like, if these people are really as successful as they claim, I don't understand why you wouldn't create a fund. Wait, is this Habitus Capital? Performance. Oh, I have to look at it by year. Return on capital. Wow. They're returning like 14% in some months. That's insane. That's the leveraged futures fund. And what about the momentum macro? Oof. Not as quite as... Wow, that actually is pretty damn good. I hate how he's doing it on a month-by-month basis, so I can't really see all of the stats. But it looks good from the information that they're giving you. So who else is involved other than Brannigan? Says a log. Pure discretionary fund designed on employing leverage in high probability strategies with a core focus on risk management. The fund executes within the liquid futures market across various asset classes. I do think that we could function as a discretionary hedge fund specializing in treasuries and have done pretty well over the past 3 years. So that was kind of one of the things that started to get me towards, you know what, Seth, you might not feel like that you have any clue what you're doing on there, but I think that you actually know more about what to do than some of the people that are already running funds of that nature out there. So you should just go for it. I don't really know a whole lot about SMB Capital, to be honest with you. Well, I'm sorry we got into like something that, it seems like everybody's interested in talking about, but it's time for me to get going. I guess we'll see how many, how the ad thing goes. I mean, I really am interested to see how many ads on average it shows you guys and what the CTR on it is. And then we can turn it off. Unless it's like really crazy effective, and then maybe I'll turn it up. Needs clicks for Seth here. Well, that's the thing. I don't think that I need the YouTube channel to get to that 100,000. But it would sure make it happen faster. The YouTube channel continues to do well, so I guess start sending ads. I probably should have before the S&P 500 opens a break, do an ad break. So at some point we should start. You'll have to remind me to do that though, because I'll forget. Okay, guys. Tomorrow, in the meantime, stay.